Hi, this is Ann Arnold with From the Vine to Wine, and today I'm talking again with one of my favorite people to interview, Sandra Taylor, who is a sustainability expert, especially in the region of wine, and actually written a wonderful book and working on a new book. We're going to talk about a little bit today too. So let's start off. What do you think are the major issues right now for the wine industry, and especially as it pertains to sustainability?
I think there are two major issues, and they both have sustainability implications. The first is climate change. I think any farmer, anybody in the agricultural space is concerned about that. And the second one is just appealing to younger consumers as baby boomers consume less wine. And this is true both in the US and in Europe. It's true worldwide that millennials and Gen Xers are the ones that we need to get to appeal to more to get them to buy more wine. And they both and these new consumers do care a lot about sustainability. How are the foods and beverages they consume produced, both environmentally and also socially? How are the people treated who produce these products? So those are the two issues that I would focus
So, as far as climate change and sustainability, what do you think are the biggest challenges right now, and what kind of solutions are there?
Well, there are a couple of challenges, both at the vineyard level and the winery level. In the vineyard, it's how do we reduce emissions in growing in viticulture, and once so there are lots of issues about emissions in the vineyard, equipment that's used, products that are used, waste management, all that. Drought obviously is a major issue. So one solution that I think a lot of wineries and vineyards are focused on is regenerative agriculture. How do we, and regenerative agriculture has shown that it can sequester carbon in the soil. There's a lot of very interesting works, some great, interesting documentaries that have been produced, and a lot of research that's been done as well. At the academic level, tests that are being done within vineyards to show that if you use cover crops and you don't till and use certain types of products, you can literally sequester carbon in the soil to prevent it from going into the atmosphere. And so that's one major solution, I think. And I think the industry is a bit surprised at how much that has, impacted. The other is packaging. So
Mhm.
much of the emissions in the wine industry have to do with heavyweight bottles. There's a lot of energy used in producing bottles, a lot of energy used in transporting heavy bottles to the marketplace. And there's been this um, erroneous assumption that the heavier the bottle, the higher quality of the wine. And
Mm.
perhaps the marketers have even used that to try to give that impression. That's just not the case. So I think wineries are looking at alternatives, alternative lighter weight bottles, wine in cans, wine on tap. There are a number of and bag and box, which I've actually have spent a lot of time in this upcoming book in my writing to promote bag and box, which has always been um, popular in Europe and especially in Sweden, of course, in Scandinavia. But in the US, there's just an assumption that any wine that's in a box is low quality wine. And perhaps that has been the case, but that's changing. One of my favorite wines, Tablas Creek, they've introduced premium wine in box and is sold out within days of being offered on the market. So I think packaging is one major area, and of course, all of this appeals to the millennial consumer,
Mhm.
and so wineries have to figure out how they communicate this better to millennials and to the marketplace generally.
So, as far as the wine industry goes and that communication to the consumer, what are your thoughts? What are they doing the right job? I mean, I know your book is very much geared to consumers,
Yeah.
but what needs to be done or what is being done that can help move this along?
Yeah. Well, of course, my book is a consumer's guide to sustainable wine, so I hope people will buy it when it comes out in a few months,
And we
because
will
it'll
definitely be
offer.
interviewing you at that point in
Okay,
time
good.
for the
Thank
book
you.
launch.
Yeah. So I think for consumers to understand the packaging, um, misnomers or misunderstandings around packaging. And so if you walk into a wine shop, check the weight of the bottles. A normal wine bottle, they all hold the same amount of liquid. So you can tell just by picking it up which ones are the lighter ones, the lighter weight ones. So that's a simple thing they can do. And also bag and box. And, there's been some excellent articles done about high quality wine that's produced organically or sustainably that's then put in a box. So I think just looking at when you walk into a wine bar or restaurant, when you order wine by the glass, ask them if it's on tap, because that's
Mm,
wine by the glass is easy. I mean, wineries deliver their wine to the companies that actually package it in kegs. It's like the old beer kegs, and they
mhm,
can be transported. So imagine at the end of the night, there are not a lot of bottles to throw out. The wine stays fresh as it also does in the box. And
mhm,
there's lots of ways for people to find out, how that happens. But also, when you think about the wine industry, the bottle is about, I call it real estate. That's kind of the only real estate you have for communicating some of this. Well, in Europe now, they have, as of the beginning of this year, they require information about content. Whether it's vegan, sugar content, just all of those, that kind of nutritional labeling that we're accustomed to seeing, on food. In the European
mhm,
Union, they now are requiring this for
mhm.
wine, any wine sold in that market. So including wines that are exported from the US into the EU. But the way they've done it is with a QR code. Doesn't
Mm,
take much real estate on the bottle. Once again, these new consumers that we need to attract, millennials, they love QR codes. They love being able to put their phone up there and get all this information. So I think that's one way that wineries can communicate this better.
mhm.
Obviously, educating retailers so that when you walk into a wine shop or a wine bar, the person who works there has the knowledge to share with you about, is this wine sustainable? How was this wine produced? How would the people treated who produce this wine? Because that's, social sustainability. They want to know that the answers to that as well. So I think
So,
there's some
uh,
ways to communicate it.
um, so as far as what about knowing if the wine is produced with regenerative agriculture? Is that something that's starting to happen at all? I mean, we see organic, we see biodynamic, we see sustainable on labels on wine websites, but is that something you think is going to be another uh, term or another um, classification
Certification.
that we're
Yeah.
going to find on wine bottles at some point?
I think we are. It's the certifications, and I mean, I love certification. I think it really validates. Now, of course, I've encountered wineries and viticulturalists, the vineyard managers, who have undertaken certain practices but are not sustainable for a variety of reasons, sometimes cost.
Mm,
But we do see on wine labels, on the neck of certain bottles, and certainly online, information about the certification, organic, biodynamic, but even the regional certifications,
mhm,
Napa Green, Live Certified, Equalitas in Italy. There are a number of these certifications. Wines of New Zealand has a certification. So you'll see those for sure. And now I think regenerative organic will join organic. So regenerative
Mhm.
organic is essentially everything that organic is, except it also has requirements for how you treat animals and wildlife, how you treat workers. And of course, increasingly, I think there's this, as I said, this recognition that regenerative agriculture really will help us deal with rising temperatures and climate change. So there are probably 5 or 6 wineries in the US that have been certified regenerative organic. There is an organization, the Rodale Institute, which is in Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
start the regenerative organic certification. And also Yves Chouinard, who is very active in this. He's not in the wine business, but he's very active in terms of regenerative agriculture.
And the certification is for all agriculture, not just wine. Is
That's
that
exactly right.
how I
Yeah.
understand
So just like organic is
it? Hmm.
for all agriculture, biodynamic is for all you find biodynamic dairies, but so it's only these regional wine certifications that are very unique to the
Hmm.
wine industry. But regenerative organic will also is will it does apply to all organic, not just wine. But just like biodynamic, the wine industry has really recognized how important these practices can be for maintaining the sustainability of wine as well as the quality.
Yeah, there are several experts and winemakers that I've come in contact with through my studies that really believe that you can tell the quality difference between, regular viticulture versus biodynamic.
Oh yeah.
And I think also too, I mean, if you're practicing biodynamic or regenerative or something like that, you're probably much more aware of what's happening in the vineyard than
Mhm.
if you're just using traditional agriculture. And so one would think that that would bring the quality up also, just being
Yeah,
more aware.
yeah, and I mean when I've talked to vineyard managers, they say they spend a lot more time in the vineyard than they
Yeah.
would. Previously when people just sprayed chemicals, I mean, when I've talked to some producers who have family-owned wineries, and they say, "Oh, well, my grandfather did it this way, my great-grandfather did it this way," and they even spray according to a certain schedule, whether the vines need spraying at that point or not. They're just
Yeah.
accustomed to, we do it 3 times, during the season, that sort of thing. So I think for biodynamic and regenerative organic, they're spending a lot more time in the vineyard, so they see things and they're more aware of
Mhm.
what the vines need and when they need it.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one last question.
Mhm.
As far as consumers, the younger consumers, we know that the baby boomers and um, older generation, like myself, not drinking as much wine. The younger generation may be switching from beer and cocktails or low alcohol to wine. What do you think is necessary for those consumers to really understand and start purchasing those sustainable wines and biodynamic regenerative? What do you think the industry needs to do? I know we talked about the QR codes, but
Mhm. I think they just need to communicate that. I think people, consumers of a certain of that age, millennials and Gen Xers and even Gen Zs who are coming along, um, I think they want to know more about how is this product produced,
Mhm.
how are people treated. They're very committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion of all underrepresented groups. So they want to know these things, not just about it's about all of the things that they consume and a lot of their purchases, and they're willing to pay more for certain things, automobiles, other things,
Yeah.
when they are persuaded that they're making a difference for the environment. So I think communicating that at wine tastings, advertising, obviously traditional advertising, making sure that their tasting room, that experience reflects, the fact that they are sustainable.
Mhm.
And so I think it's all of the traditional ways in which they've communicated. Obviously, the QR code is not quite as traditional. I personally think having that certification
Mhm.
sealed on the bottle helps as well.
Yeah.
But also alternative packaging. I mean, Tabulous Creek and their last box wine that they released, one whole panel of the box is devoted to explaining why bag and box is good for the environment. So I think just purchasing that,
Yeah.
you get to understand this. So I think there are many ways, and marketers can be so creative in helping us think through. And also, obviously, online, a lot of purchases are made online. There's
Mhm.
obviously lots of ways online to communicate this, and then through traditional advertising.
Well, I am so excited for the next time that we speak because the book will be published. The
Yeah.
consumers, have you got is the title
Well, the
set
title
already
I
or
have is the
work in
working
progress?
title is A Consumer's Guide to Sustainable Wine. It's not exciting, so I'm now working with designers for the cover, and they may actually recommend something different, but that's really what it is. It's a guide for consumers to what is sustainable, what are all the various aspects, and then it'll include quite a number of wines as well, that
Gonna be
you can
great.
buy. Yeah.
Not wait for that. Well,
Thank
thank you so much. It's been really great to talk to you again. And yeah, good luck
thank
with the final aspects of the publishing.
thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.